Hi friends, Pastor Buddy here with a time of prayer and meditation with Pastor Buddy. I'm in the sanctuary again this week and in a very special place for me. It's a place I've spent almost 21 years in. The cross behind me, as you can see in the communion table, candles. It's a wonderful place, a place of prayer and meditation and worship. I'm looking out at the congregation right now, empty pews, but I see the faces and I see the smiles. I see the joy. I see tears too. I see the ups and the downs of life. We've been through a lot in these 21 years. That's part of life, isn't it? Well, life is full of ups and downs, of the good times and the bad times, the coming and the going, the victories, the defeats. It's all part of life. It's the whole of life. It's not all wonderful and good. It's also sometimes very sad. I talked about prayers of sadness last week. I'm moving in a similar direction, though, this week to talk about the prayers of grief. Grief is a strange thing. It's a normal part of life. We lose things. Things change. It's not all about death only. It's certainly a big piece of grief in our lives when we lose a loved one. There's grief, no doubt. But there are other griefs too. There are the griefs of moving from one place to another, from one good place to another good place. But there's a grief in moving and letting go of what is familiar for the unfamiliar, and that's change. There are the griefs of getting married and going from your single life to married life. It's a change. Or for children to leave home and to go off to college or into their new life, maybe married or in their vocation. Oh, yeah, we all know the empty nest syndrome, right? That's grief. There's the grief of jobs that we get and we like, and then we lose and we let go and have to move on. And then there's the grief of retirement, and that brings me to me. That's my situation right now as I get ready in a couple of weeks to retire after 40 plus years of ministry. It's all I've practically known my entire life. And you know what? Every morning I wake up and I've got some grief work to do. I've got tears to shed. The last few days I started doing what I needed to do as I finish up, and that is to visit some of our homebound folks who can't get to church anymore. And I don't want to just leave town and leave them behind without saying thank you and give my love, my gratitude, and to pray for them. And so I've started that process. I've got, about 4 people so far out of 32. I got a lot of work cut out for me. But you know what? Every time I go, I cry. I go and I cry, and it's going to just keep happening. It's grief. You know, when my mother died, I went to a class on grief, and it was really helpful. I remember the teacher telling us this little phrase. I can't remember the whole phrase, but it was TUG, and it stood tug, and it stood for temporary upsurge in grief. And she reminded us that sometimes when things in life have changed and we're grieving, whether it is whatever the loss may be, that it's temporary. Those feelings don't stay forever. We will come through them. Remember that. And she said, remember too, it's an upsurge. It happens suddenly. We see something that reminds us of our loved one or what we used to do, and it's not the same anymore, and it will be an upsurge, overwhelming, and usually brings us to tears or at least very deep emotion. And she says the third thing to remember is that you're not crazy. It's grief. Grief is normal, and grief has to do a lot with the pain and suffering of life. And it comes and it goes, and it stays for a while, sometimes for a season, and we need to remember that. Some people feel crazy when they're going through grief. They might come 6 months down the road and after that loss of a job or a loved one or a move or whatever, wonder, what's happening to me? I feel so crazy. I remember when we moved from North Carolina to New Jersey so that my wife could go to Princeton Seminary, and about 6 months in, one morning I just said to myself, I'm so unhappy. I hate it. I hate that life changed. And I wondered, was I ever going to get through that? Was I ever going to move to a new place within myself? The fact was, I liked the new work I was doing, but I missed my family, my parents, and I missed my old life in North Carolina. And I wondered, would I ever be happy again? Sometimes we have to go through the season. You know, the scriptures are very helpful for us in this. I find the Psalms to be especially helpful, well, not only for this emotion of grief, but for every emotion in life. I remember Billy Graham, hearing him speak personally when I was in college, and he talked to us. He sat down on the stage. We were a bunch of college students, and he just talked about life, and he answered our questions. And one of the things he said was he read the Psalms every day of his life, because the Psalms, he said, encompassed every human emotion. And so whatever we may bring to our day and to that moment, whether it's joy or sadness or grief or fear or wonder, whatever it is, you'll find a psalm that speaks to it. Well, there are a lot of psalms that speak to the grief of our lives. Here's a couple. Psalm 6. Let me read just a little of that for you so that you can hear this. O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger or discipline me in your wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are shaking with terror. My soul also is struck with terror. While you, O Lord, how long? Turn, O Lord, save my life. Deliver me for the sake of your steadfast love. For in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, the place of the dead, who can give you praise? I'm weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. My eyes waste away because of grief. Have you ever been through that? Ever been there? Maybe, are you there right now? I know I am. I'm not languishing in my bed with tears yet, but I feel the tears, the weeping, the grief, the loss that I'm experiencing in letting go of something I love and the people I love being here at First Presbyterian Church. And maybe you're going through that too. There's another psalm. I'm just going to do this one. There's many more, but I'm going to stop with this one. The psalmist says in Psalm 39, said, Lord, let me know my end, and what is the measure of my days? Let me know how fleeting my life is. You've made my days a few handbreadths, and my lifetime is as nothing in your sight. Surely everyone stands as a mere breath. Surely everyone goes about like a shadow. Surely for nothing they are in turmoil. They heap up and do not know who will gather. And now, O Lord, what do I wait for? My hope is in you. I love that. Lord, what do I wait for? Well, my hope is in you. I'm silent. I do not open my mouth. Remove your stroke from me. I am worn down. Hear my prayer, O Lord, and give ear to my cry. Do not hold your peace at my tears, for I am a passing guest, an alien like all my forebears. Turn your gaze away from me that I may smile again before I depart and am no more. I love that phrase, that prayer. Do not hold your peace at my tears. Let me smile again. Friends, I just want to remind you again that grief is a passing thing. It's a tug, temporary, it's an upsurge, and it's grief. It comes and it will go. But maybe it's the season we're in at this time. Go with it. Live into it. May it become for you good grief. May it be for you a time where God works in your soul a new work, a new possibility. May it be a time of learning of what is past and what is coming and who you are right now, what you need to let go of, what you need to hold on to. May it be a time for you to grow in faith and in hope, knowing that God holds us in our grief. I think of that story of Jesus and Lazarus, when Lazarus died, and Mary and Martha, his sisters, were grieving, and they said, Lord, if you'd been here, you could have stopped this. Don't you feel that sometime? Lord, if you could have intervened, this wouldn't have happened to me. We feel that way, certainly. Jesus doesn't always stop everything in life from happening. People die. We move. Jobs change. Our bodies dwindle. Yeah, we live in grief. But I love the end of the story when Jesus comes up to Lazarus in the tomb and he says, Lazarus, come out. Lazarus rises up from the grave and comes out, and Jesus says, unbind him and let him go. He's alive again. My prayer for you is that, Lord, unbind us and let us go in freedom again. Unbind us from the grief that holds us and let us live free again with new hope of life and of resurrection in this life and the life to come. It's my prayer for you, friends, whatever it is you may be going through. May you know that God holds you in your tears and that the smile will come again. As I said last week, the sorrow and sighing last for a night, but joy comes in the morning. It's true. And so ride the wave of this grief right now. Let it do its work in you that needs to be done, because God has a purpose for all seasons and a way of making a difference in us. May it be true for you that as you come through this grief, you may awaken and discover a new day, and that all is well, and all manner of things shall be well. Let's just pause for a moment. Let me offer this prayer for you. Lord, in this life, we realize we have such little control over things. There are things that are beyond our ability to hold on to and to keep. There are loved ones we have to let go of. There are jobs and homes we have to let go of. They often come abruptly when we're least prepared. And even when we are somewhat prepared, the finality of our losses sometimes is unbearable and is something that we could not ultimately have prepared for. We are vulnerable and we live in tears, and our tears come in the night, and we wonder, oh Lord, as the psalmist prayed, how long? But as the psalmist reminds us too, our hope is in you, not in me, not in my ability to cope, not in my power and ability to make things work the way I want them to work. No, I let go of those things out of my control. My hope is in you, and that you who have been there for me and for us in the past will be there now and in all the days to come. And so we give you thanks. Lord, in our grieving, come and hold us until our smiles come back again. And they will, because you are a God of resurrection who always brings life out of death. Thanks be to God. Amen. God bless you, friends. May you know God's steadfast love for this day and all the days to come. I'll see you next week with a time of prayer and meditation with Pastor Buddy. Bye-bye now. Have a wonderful day, and a day in which you know God goes with you. Amen.